Hello, Realtors, and welcome back to GADcast, brought to you by the North Shore-Barrington Association of Realtors. My name's Joe Roth. I'm your local government affairs director at NSBAR. Before we get on with our guest this episode, a few news updates. The Cook County Board of Commissioners has introduced an ordinance to regulate the relationship between landlords and tenants. The ordinance has numerous provisions and mandates on landlords that would apply throughout Cook County. During a public hearing on November 16th, real estate groups, tenant groups, and private citizens commented on the impact of this proposal. And while commissioners made it clear that this would not apply in the city of Chicago, there are a number of provisions that will be problematic throughout most of the county. One such proposal is including a $10 cap on late rent payments. Further, the county bans move-in fees, which is problematic for both landlords and homeowners associations that charge these types of fees. Items that throughout this proposal increase risks and costs for rental properties and are hurting the very tenants that they propose to support. Commissioner Silvestri has agreed to form a task force to conduct a survey on existing laws throughout the county that regulate residential rentals. While we've agreed upon these things, the bill sponsors still want to move forward with a vote on the whole county board in December. Illinois Realtors staff will serve on a task force, offer amendments for the proposal, and continue to engage the commissioner on these issues. You still have time to respond to the call for action on this issue. Go to NSBAR's Facebook page, Illinois Realtors website, or text Realtors to 30644 for the latest information and ability to respond to that call for action. In Glencoe, the village board continues to move towards a proposed home rule referendum for the April 2021 election. The board must move on this issue at their December 17th meeting. If you'd like more information on this proposal, just send me an email, joe@nasbar.org. And now, let's get on with our guest. We have a first now in GADcast recordings in our first repeat guest. So we're going to welcome back the amazing Miss Julie Sullivan. Julie, thanks for joining us.
Oh, Joe, thank you so much for asking, and it's a pleasure to be back with the NSBAR members.
All right, so let's jump in. We just wrapped up an election here, and by just wrapping up, I think in Lake County, they just finished counting ballots this week. So we're just wrapping up here, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on the election and how our Realtor champions fared.
Well, it was a very unusual election year. I think on the good side, I love to see how many people came out to vote this year. It's really a great thing for us to have such a high voter turnout. We obviously had a huge number of not in-person voting this time because of a variety of reasons. It was made easier this year due to the pandemic, but I think it's going to be a trend that we'll see going forward. But you know, with all of the money that we spent and all of the commercials that we all endured and the mail that you got in your mailboxes and the digital ads, not a lot changed in terms of overall numbers. In the Congress, pre-election split was 13 Democrats, 5 Republicans. Post-election will be the same. Now there is one district, District 14, where the incumbent, Lauren Underwood, ultimately, on election night, they declared Jim Oberweis, or he declared that he had won, but as the votes came in, Lauren Underwood ultimately won that race with over 5,000 votes. Now, I know Oberweis is talking about perhaps seeking a recount, but that 5,000 number is a pretty sizable number, so that may be a challenge for him. In the state Senate, as you know, not all of the senators in the state Senate run at one time. They usually split it into thirds. So 22 of the 59 seats were up in the November 3rd election. The pre-election split was 40 Democrats, 19 Republicans. The Senate actually gained 1 Democratic seat. So it was, in fact, Jim Oberweis's old Senate seat flipped to a Democratic seat holder there. So the post-election is 41-18. We were involved on the RPAC side and the IE side in a lot of the tier 1 races. In the Senate, we were 100%, 10 for 10. So those are a couple open seats and some incumbents, and we supported people on both sides of the aisle, but that was great to have that great victory. And we have a lot of realtor champions coming back to the state Senate. In the House, all 118 members run every 2 years. Here's one good statistic though, 48 of the 118 had no opponent whatsoever. So 59 incumbents had opponents, 6 incumbents lost their seat. And there's still one race that is still not determined. You're right, Joe, that the counties had to certify by the 17th. They have to then get to the State Board of Elections by the 24th. But there is one seat in the Rockford area where incumbent John Cabello, a Republican, has lost his seat as of the final vote count by 239 votes. Now, he has indicated he's considering a recount. That's a pretty close vote, but the Democrat there picked up that seat. So pre-election in the Illinois House was 74 Democrats, 44 Republicans. As of right now, it's 72 Democrats, 45 Republicans, but that one seat to be determined. So one Democratic pickup in the House, it may be one Republican pickup one Democrat in the Senate, one Republican in the House, and no change in Congress after all of this. So, yeah. So I guess we can say we're stable in Illinois in terms of our politics, maybe. But and then obviously a lot of people were interested in a couple of other issues. The constitutional amendment for the graduated income tax, moving for Illinois from a flat rate tax to a graduated, failed pretty big. I think to the surprise of our governor, but it was about 53-47. So that was not happy time for him, but I think a lot of people felt very strongly about that issue, and certainly there was a lot of money spent. I think total was about $100 million they spent on that race. So that was amazing. And we had one local referenda, which is unusual. Usually in Illinois, we have a lot of local referendas on the ballot that we engage in. This year, we only had one in suburban Cook County. Crestwood was seeking home rule again, and it overwhelmingly was defeated, which we were actively engaged in that, as we are in most home rule referenda. So that sends a pretty clear message. I think increasingly you're seeing municipalities back away from wanting to do a home rule, because I think they now know that the voters are educated thanks to our efforts. And when people know what that's about, I think they don't like it. And so that's a good thing. So not only RPAC support, but we also did, like I said, some independent expenditures, and we were 4 for 4 in our top tier races, which is great. We won 2 of 4 in those 2-tier level 2 races. So we did a really good job. And it's hard to be 100% in independent expenditures, because those are the toughest races out there. And if you can come away with those kind of victories, it really says a lot. I can tell you, legislators and any elected officials that are recipients of independent expenditures and RPAC support are so appreciative, and they know that not only do we give that financial support, but we follow through and remain engaged with them after the election. Unlike some groups that come in, may give financial support and then kind of drop off. But I think we have a lot of new good friends in the General Assembly. That will be obviously a new challenge for us as well when we start that. The new General Assembly will be sworn in January 13th of 2021. But it's going to be like, are we going to have a ceremony in Springfield like we normally do? Or will we see like judges in the local districts swearing these new members? I mean, it's just sure. It's so unusual that we just have to continually adapt to in not only in political life, but in our lives every day. So, but it's going to be a challenging year when they do come back in. As you know, Joe, we weren't in session very much at all in 2020 due to the pandemic. So there's a lot of issues that are pending that were stalled last year. But then the biggest issue will be, once again, the budget. Revenues were significantly down, and Illinois is facing a significant challenge there. So we'll have to be watchful for revenue sources that they're talking about. The standards always come back of, maybe sweeping dedicated funds like the real estate fund, or, starting to look at new taxing ideas, tax on services, advertising taxes. All of those old issues may come back to the forefront. So we'll have to be mindful of that for sure.
Absolutely. And I want to transition here a little bit because you had mentioned the governor and his initiatives for the graduated income tax. But we have a lot of other activity out of the governor's office
Yes,
too.
indeed.
With the pandemic kind of accelerating once again, we have some new executive orders coming out of the governor's office. Can you talk about a few of those and
Sure.
how that impacts our members here?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, for those of you who are property managers and landlords, you know that we've been dealing with the ongoing eviction moratorium executive orders. And once again, on Friday the 13th, which ominously enough, he did extend the moratorium on evictions through December 13th. These executive orders are 30 days at a time. He did tweak it a little bit. I think he thought he was doing more than actually what, pen to paper said, but he had indicated that he wanted to start balancing the rights of tenants with landlords. I mean, it's been very pro-tenant, obviously, and I think the message is finally getting through. I mean, the majority of landlords in the state of Illinois are these smaller landlords. They may have a 4-flat, live in one unit and rent the other 3. And their livelihoods are, and not only their livelihoods, but, the property and the property tax, everything's being jeopardized there. So there's a lot of signs going up there. I see bankrupt landlords equal homeless people. I mean, that is a real issue out there. So the new EO, executive order, appeared to, maybe give a small opening for some housing providers, landlords, to pursue some evictions, because we're hearing a lot of stories. I'm sure, Joe, you've heard them as well, and the members
Absolutely.
have heard them, where people are who can pay their rent are just not paying their rent because they figure there's nothing the landlord can do. So the governor tried to carve out and specifically say that a housing provider could commence eviction action against those that are not covered people, and he defined those covered persons by income, and that they had to document that they truly were impacted by COVID. So he pulled in the Housing Development Authority, which would now be required to have a form called where you attest to the fact that a declaration form that you were truly impacted by COVID. That language in that declaration mirrors the language that's in the executive order. So I would urge members that are really interested in seeing what that may be. We have all of that information on our website, and then the CDC form that they created. So it kind of mirrors a couple things that are already out there. So while it is a little more restricted, the bottom line is, for the most part, you're not going to be able to commence any residential eviction against a covered person unless the person is posing a direct threat to the safety of other tenants. So, but like I said, the best way and the best thing I can tell the members to do if they're interested in the language is to go on our website. We have, I mean, we've done a tremendous job, legal and communications at Illinois Realtors, and having that page constantly this whole year updated. And so it is really, really good information. So you can look at the breaking news or the blog posts on the website. And, we have dedicated COVID information. And like I said, our legal team is very good as soon as those executive orders are issued in updating those pages. So but on the good side, and another issue dealing with the governor is that real estate providers continue to be deemed an essential business. And I don't see that changing. I think that but we have to be mindful. As you know, we went back, all of the state of Illinois went back to the tier 3 level because of the spike in COVID cases. So it'd be a good idea to refresh your memory and, be mindful of the things that you need to do when conducting your business. Again, our website has a great resource, but we are still an essential business, importantly, but be careful out there. Mask, be mindful in open houses. I just sold my home in September, and it was amazing to me, the difference this time of selling my home from the last time I did it, and the precautions that my realtor took, and the realtor that brought in the buyer to my home. And I felt safe, they felt safe, and I can tell you it's a good feeling as a client. And I know that our members are really mindful of that and have been very cautious. But so information on open houses, again, tenant occupied showings, any other resource that you may have or have a question on, please go back and refresh your knowledge of what is required in the state of Illinois.
And that address is illinoisrealtors.org/COVID-19 for those
Correct.
listening.
Yes.
In case you forgot, Julie, no, that's great information on that. Thank you. So you had started hitting on kind of some of the challenges that we're facing as we go into new sessions. But I'd like to hit kind of quickly on first on the veto session. That's been canceled, and we've got spring with potentially lame duck. We've got all these things. Give me your thoughts on what's going on there.
Well, actually, today would have been our last day of the first week of our fall session. Traditionally, the fall session is the week before Thanksgiving, Tuesday through Thursday, and the week after Thanksgiving. So it would have been the 17th through the 19th, and then December 1st through the 3rd. And while the fall session used to be known as the veto session because we dealt with the vetoes that the governor did, because there's a time issue there, you have to deal with them, or they just you have to override them or to accept them. But there were no vetoes this year. So, but like I said, fall session is kind of morphed into mini session where a lot of new issues also came up. It used to be deemed that they had to be emergencies, but everyone has their definition of an emergency, I guess. But there were a lot of hearings over the summer, particularly in the Senate, which had approved virtual hearings. The House joined with the Senate in some of those, but they didn't have similar types of hearings. They had to do in-person hearings, which a few committees did do that. But as I said, the Senate had a pretty ambitious package of ideas that they were vetting over the summer, and so they had thought that they would pursue those in the fall session. Well, because of the spike in the numbers, particularly in Sangamon County and Springfield, the numbers were alarming about 2 weeks ago. They're kind of stabilized now, but they're still pretty high. The Senate president and the Speaker of the House determined it would not be safe to bring the members down to Springfield, particularly with the capacity limitations. I don't know if any of the members watched on the General Assembly website, but even those 4 days that we were in last May, the House had to convene in the convention center here, and they had metal desks spread apart, and the same room that we held our Capitol Conference briefings in, that's where the House was. The Senate just brought members to the floor 10 at a time to vote, but the senators all have their offices in the Capitol building itself. So that made it a little easier, plus the body is smaller. The House, most of their offices are over in that lovely Stratton office building. What looks like maybe a federal prison, a little bit. But that was just a challenge. So it was difficult for a lobbying entity. It was very challenging because they were very limited on letting people in to talk to legislators. So then it became the concern of how much is that public discourse and how is the public being engaged in a process that's so locked down. So those all were taken into account. They just decided not to come into the fall session. However, as I said earlier, the new General Assembly will be sworn in January 13th. So you have a window there, after the first of the year, potentially all of those days until the 13th, where the old General Assembly could meet in lame duck session. So right now we are anticipating that could occur. And Katie barred the door there, because not only is it the old General Assembly with some of those members leaving, hence the lame duck, but it's also, you only need a simple majority, whereas in the fall, you would have required, all votes required an extraordinary majority. So more controversial things could occur when you only need a simple majority to pass it. So we're being very mindful of that and watching that very closely. But we also are engaging with legislators on ideas that we have, positive ideas for the housing industry. As those of you who participated in the Public Policy Forum heard about our package of bills, and we've had great success in promoting those with legislators, members of the Black Caucus, who are putting together different ideas as they move forward with their overall agenda. And our housing bill ideas are becoming part of that. We're very happy about that. And they're incentive-based. They're designed to meet the goal that everyone has of getting more affordable housing constructed, reconstructed, and out there. So incentives through the property tax code, where you would get a lowered EAV for several years if you commit to having a certain number of units committed for affordable housing in rental units. There's also income tax incentives that will intended to incentivize people to build more or reconstruct or redevelop existing structures for affordable housing purposes. And Joe, as your members are well aware, we would like to see enacted statewide language that would prohibit a local government from banning the use of accessory dwelling units. You guys have taken the forefront on that, and I think it's a great thing. We're already hearing pushback from the city of Chicago, no surprise there, but I think there's overwhelming support for that idea, especially seeing how successful it has been in Evanston, for example. So that's part of our package as well. There's one other item that wasn't discussed in our fall package that we were looking at as well is, I don't know, many of you know that actually right now local governments are required to have an affordable housing plan in place. They're supposed to submit those plans to the Housing Development Authority, and that act has been on the books since '04. But local governments, there was never any mechanism to require them to do it, to enforce that they had to do it. So a lot of local governments just ignored the mandate and just didn't submit the plans. So they're trying to put some teeth into that act to say, if you don't submit the plans, they can IDA could turn around and certify to the state of Illinois that, hey, these cities or counties didn't submit their plan, and the state could withhold some of their local government distributive funds, what they get a share of the state income tax. So money talks there. I think the locals will take note of that. That's a good act for developers too, because it allows them a venue to appeal if they're denied a housing project. So we are looking at that language. We want to be mindful that they don't put anything that would harm developers, obviously, because that act is intended to encourage the development of those type of properties, which are needed throughout the state of Illinois. So we're hopeful that we can get that housing package moving quickly, if not in the lame duck session, certainly as soon as they begin action in the new General Assembly.
No, that's great information. And I think you're absolutely right. The incentive-based approach is so important and critical, because I feel, we deal a lot in the North Shore with inclusionary zoning policies that are very mandate heavy.
Yes.
But the cost offsets are minimal. Now we always try to work with municipalities to make those cost offsets a bit more robust. But having that kind of incentive, I think, will go a really long way in the production of affordable units.
Right, and it just it just turns the argument to where it should be, and developers, I think, get unfairly criticized when they're doing everything they can, but they deal with so many restrictive provisions in local laws that it makes it like undoable for them to proceed. So it's very encouraging, and it's very, very encouraging for the first time that there's such broad support for incentive-based programs. So now the one caution I would have is, when you're in a really bad financial situation, giving more incentives costs money. That may be troublesome, but we certainly are aware of that part of the argument, and we are working to address those needs with balancing out with budgetary concerns.
Oh, that makes sense. I want to hit real quick on your relatively recent announcement this year. For our members that did not hear, that you announced your retirement coming up. Of course, I have heard a number of people, first of all, ask, what's retirement? And secondly, I've heard nothing but an outpouring of affection and admiration for you. And I think that is truly on display with the other announcement I just heard, which is that upon retirement, you are also going to be next year's RPAC Hall of Fame class.
Indeed. Well, I practice what I preach, and I believe in RPAC so much, and I truly believe in the work that we do, the good work that RPAC allows us to do. And I noticed I was getting closer to the Hall of Fame status, so I was like, I have to do it. So I'm really excited about that as well. And I think it's the right thing to do, and a good way to show my continued respect, support, and love of Realtors and RPAC. So go team.
That's excellent. Well, Julie, I truly appreciate all of the support I've received since working with you, and I admire your work and everything you've done for this industry. And it's a sentiment I just hear time and again from the membership here at NSBAR.
Well, that's very nice of you to say. And I consider myself so lucky to have been able to work here for 31 years and work on issues that, frankly, it's easy to go to work and do what you do when you believe in what you do and love what you do. And I truly have loved this job. Maybe not every day, but but no, I really, really have loved my time here. And so I appreciate the kind comments.
All right. Any closing thoughts or comments before we sign off here?
Just that I think you do a tremendous job. The NSBAR members are so lucky to have you. And I think that all the innovation that you have done to bring the message, especially in these times, you're to be commended for that, Joe. And the members, NSBAR members, continue to be engaged. You guys do such a tremendous job, and all of the members from the area. And you're going to have a new Senate Republican leader from your area, so that's a great thing as well. And we were able to develop that relationship very quickly with him, and he's called to touch base with us already. And so just continue to do what you do.
Much appreciation. Many thanks, Julie. Thank you again for joining us.
Sure.
It's always a pleasure. And
maybe next time I'll join you from away in Arizona at the spring training.
I think that's, you know what, maybe that will be our new podcast at NSBAR. Jeff and Bradley may give me some grief for this, but I think a spring training report podcast featuring Julie Sullivan is exactly what we all need.
I think you've got to be live on the scene now too, Joe.
I will definitely do some remote broadcasts. I think this is in the works. Well, Julie, thank you again. Much
you're so
appreciated.
welcome. Thank you for asking me. Happy holidays, everyone. And
that does it for this episode of GADcast. If you have questions, comments, or topics you'd like us to discuss, just email me, joe@nasbar.org. Thank you very much for joining us, everyone. Have a happy Thanksgiving, and until our next episode, be well. you.